Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Anything and Everything with Donna Lisa. I'm your host, Donna Lisa, and today I have a very special guest with me, Scott Vera, owner of Level 9 Studios, my little home where I found 4 of my recordings. Thank you, Scott, for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I know the first time, this is like my 3rd episode filming here, and it's with you.
Yep.
I've kind of checked around all over the town, looked at different studios, and yours actually was the better fit for me. I've gone to a couple, didn't like the setup, didn't like just how it all rolled out. And it wasn't easy for my guests to actually get there. So thank you for making it convenient. You're like right off the freeway. So I love that. Scott is actually the owner of Level 9 Studios. I like your story. So you and I were just talking offline, talking about how you kind of got into this, your background. So let's just start way back. I know you're a Las Vegas native.
Somewhat, yep. Born in New York and raised out in Vegas.
Nice. So how many years have you been out here?
So I'm 44. So over 43, 42 years, I guess. So
wow.
My mom and I used to bounce back and forth when I was real young. And then we made it permanent, when I was around maybe 5 or 6 or something like that.
Okay. And you just never, I'm thinking 42 years ago when you were here, there wasn't a lot.
No. It wasn't actually. And I lived not too far away from here. I live right in the heart of the city off of Desert Inn, Pecos, Flamingo.
Oh, wow.
Twain.
You're right there. Yeah.
So Twain and Swenson is where I grew up.
Okay.
So that whole area.
So you kind of stayed close to where you grew up.
Yes.
Never branched off anywhere else, because most people will start off. I know a lot of Las Vegas natives who started off way up north and they kind of ventured down south a little bit. Yeah. Where there was nothing out there but tumbleweeds back then.
Nope. Yeah. We, the family just stayed right there in the city. It was convenient for them because they were casino workers, a lot of them.
Okay.
So, bartenders and my grandfather was in real estate and he did the bartending thing, and he had a big hand in raising me. So
so he was in real estate and he was a bartender.
He was.
Okay, so it was his bartending job is full time.
It was.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, so he was pretty busy, but very family oriented. Always took care of his family. So I had a great example there.
And so, with you being raised here, did you have a career in the casino world? Just because everyone else has.
I did. That's where everybody was at.
Right.
Nobody went to school in my family. Nobody preached going to school. Nobody did any of those things. So it was just like, you know what, go ahead and go get a job. But I did that. And I had a lot of crazy odd end jobs. I really had no direction, but I've been working since I was 13 years old officially. My first job was at the Boulevard Mall when I was 13 years old.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's that old. I didn't realize how old that mall was. Okay, interesting story. But quickly, I just want to add or ask. So you graduated from what high school now?
Valley.
Okay. And then you just straight into the casino world. What kind of job were you doing? Were you were in the restaurants? Were you a concierge, valet?
Back in those days, I wasn't in the casinos at that time.
Okay.
So I had some, what was I doing back in those days? I had warehouse jobs and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I used to work in, certain industrial companies out here.
Right.
And did forklift driving and, warehouse stuff. Just, things that just weren't important. But, just really a bunch of odd end jobs.
Right.
But I was really creative. So during that time when I graduated high school, I grew up, my mother was very creative. So she was always knitting and crocheting and creating things from scratch. She was into arts and crafts.
Yeah.
So I grew up watching her do those types of things. And we were big into music. My mother was a huge music fan. So she was always playing music, cleaning the house, creating things. So I grew up around this creative mother of mine, and it kind of inspired me and influenced me to do the things that I did. And, during those times after high school, I ended up getting into producing music. So, and I love back in the day, my family's from the Bronx. So hip hop is a big part of our culture.
Okay.
So
I love that. I grew up on that.
Yeah. So it's everything was hip hop, soul, R&B, funk, blues, rock, everything, but mostly a lot of hip hop. And I got into that, started producing music, and fell in love with the process of producing music and audio recordings. And eventually it led me to do what I'm doing today.
So you're 44, so you graduated in the 90s?
97.
Okay, yeah, so I was early 90s. You're likely, okay, so you're probably around that time. Hip hop, R&B, rap, rap was like heavy.
90s was great. Yeah, for that era of music.
Great music.
Sure.
So you decided at what age to just get into producing?
I was around 19, 20 years old.
Okay, very young age. And then who were you producing? Just friends or like random artists, up and coming artists?
I was basically teaching myself at that time just to produce music, and I was producing music for myself, and then I started to promote that music on everything that I was doing, showing that I was like the producer, writer, and all of that, and word got around that I was producing music, and I started selling it eventually, and got into producing music for other people.
So how did you, so I'm just trying to think, like you were very young. This is way before social media.
Yeah.
I think we had, AOL started. I think that was kind of new, right? The internet.
Yeah, like late 90s for sure.
Right, right.
So, I mean, when I got my first computer, it was like around 98, 99.
Right.
I'm sure it was a little bit before that too, but yeah.
Because I'm trying to think, I was in college at the time, and there wasn't a lot. Cell phones were just kind of starting off, and we had the big phones.
Yeah.
So how did you market yourself to get out there?
Just by print. I would go out there and print and ask, certain record shops if I could, put up my flyers.
Yeah.
Or go to like music stores and put up flyers or put out my CDs on the registers and see what would happen.
Did you ever sell the CDs?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I went hand to hand. I sold them out of the trunk. I used to go into the stores and I would go into record shops, and people that were entering,
right,
I would be out there with my CDs and I would
Very
sell
cool.
CDs. Yeah, I've always had side hustles.
Right.
Like I would cut hair, or I was into arts and crafts too.
So
I would make
were you a barber? Or you just did it?
I did it for myself, and I did it for my friends. Yeah,
Okay.
because back in the day, back in the 90s, especially out here, it really wasn't that big barbering out here. But I was really fascinated with, barbering and the technique. And I had a friend that was like really skilled in that.
Okay.
And he showed me a few things, and I just kind of got hooked on it, and I just started making money off of that. So doing a whole bunch of different things. But I always had like a side hustle, always.
That's always before it became famous, right? Or popular. Everyone now wants to do a side hustle. Well, back in the day, it was like, why are you doing so many things? That's kind of cool. So my brother and I, we have family, my parents grew up in hair, but my brother and I were kind of forced. Sorry, Dad, if you're listening. We were kind of forced to get in the family business and get a barber license. We cut hair at a very young age. I was like 18. He was 19. I didn't care for it much. People knew that, but I did it to help out the family business, and eventually just started running my parents' business. My brother, though, he mastered the craft. And of course, everyone, it wasn't a big thing, right? But all the younger kids coming in were like, oh, I want that dude to cut my hair because he looked cool, the baggy jeans, that 90s urban look. So that's how we got a lot of business just coming into our shop, because we were the younger brother and sister. Yeah. But it's interesting how people nowadays would never know that I actually cut hair. And I would have never expected you to have cut hair back in your day too. Yeah. So you were cutting hair, and then you were also producing. I've had friends that produced music in Hawaii. And I just remember when you're talking about going to the music stores, some of them actually worked at record stores. Yeah. They would drop their CDs there. It's the flyers that you get invited to go check out some house party or whatever and see them perform. That's kind of neat. So, I mean, it kind of brings me back to how hard it was to get your name out there. And nowadays, the younger generation, or everybody now who's on the internet, has no idea how difficult it was to promote yourself.
Oh, yeah. It was a totally different ballgame. You had no help, literally no help. And everything was so expensive back in the days.
Right.
There's so many different platforms out there where you can promote yourself for free, absolutely for free, and reach a lot of people worldwide. So it's a totally different game now.
Wow.
Or back then, rather.
Right, for sure. And so, do you think a lot of people have more advantage now just getting into the game, or is it very saturated?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, it depends though, but I think it's a lot easier, especially if you're consistent and you have the means to produce at a high level and consistently, and you can constantly, because you can evolve, and then you can grow your fan base, or you can grow your following. I mean, there's just so much more opportunity with all of that now, knowing that it's so much easier, and you don't have to show face everywhere, but you can create your music, and it's a lot easier than what it used to be.
Yeah, I know. I I see, or I watch a lot of people on the internet and like these young stars up and coming and how quickly they made it big, right? And I'm like, man, it just takes that one video, that one, piece of music or whatever, and you go viral. And then you have that record deal, right? Whereas back in the day, everyone was mailing in their, their tapes, their CDs just to get listened to. And some of them would end up in the garbage. Because I know some friends who did that.
True.
So I love that it's much easier for everybody to get into it now, but love hearing your story on how hard you had to work to get there.
Definitely.
So while you were getting into producing, when did you decide to make that like a full-time career? Because you were doing all sorts of different jobs, right?
Yeah. So I have always kept like a 9 to 5.
Okay.
I always felt like that was just important. I started my family young. My wife and I have been together for 25 years. We have 3 boys. So we started and we had our kids in our, late teens. So I always kept the job. So no matter what. And it was just kind of like built in me to like, being around, my family members. Like my mother was a hard worker. She never she had type 1 diabetes. She used to go to work in shock, and she never called out. She was one of the hardest working people I know.
Wow.
My grandfather, the same thing. He was just a hardworking individual. So I had those as examples. But I always kept my job. Always kept the job, and then I knew like that would help like support my hobby / passion. So it was more than a hobby. It was more a passion for sure, because I just loved doing it. And when I wasn't making money, but I got good. Developed a skill set. Word got around, and I started. Things just started taking off for me. I ended up working at a pretty well known recording studio out here called Pompeii Studios. It was ran by Michael Mancini, and he had a bunch of platinum albums that he had worked on. He was, like a world-class, world-renowned engineer, and he worked with like Whitney Houston and all of the greats from the 80s.
His name sounds familiar.
Yeah, and he took me under his wing. I worked with him for a little while, and so when I was working my 9 to 5, I was working in the studio, and I was purchasing the things that I needed to purchase in order to, scale within, production. And from there, I got called. So I ended up leaving that situation with Pompeii Studios. After a couple of years. We were just on different paths, and I ended up buying my own equipment. I mean, I did have equipment at the time, but I wanted to do things on my own and really try to like learn like engineering, and I got fascinated and obsessed with the engineering process, like learning how to mix and master, because that's a big part of music production. So I ended up buying. I'm gonna package this up real nice for you. So bought a bunch of equipment, stuck myself in a room for many years, and just learned how. I taught myself because we didn't have YouTube or any of. We did.
I was just going to ask if you're self-taught.
Yeah, I'm self-taught. So I pretty much just stuck myself in a room and taught myself how to do a lot of these things.
And this is like after hours, after your regular job.
After my regular job, did everything. And the crazy thing is I was working graveyard. So I sacrificed a lot. Right. So, and I was working at the Venetian. I was working in the credit department there. And it was a good, secure job, and I had an opportunity to be promoted to one of their newer properties that wasn't in Las Vegas. And around 2007, I was just like, I had this itch to kind of like get out of that business completely and start, doing stuff on my own. And I wanted to open up a recording studio. And my wife and I had a discussion, and I quit. And mind you, we had no money saved. We were living check to check.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what was your wife doing at the time? And your kids were very young.
Yeah. She was working in the in the casino industry as well. Yeah, so she was working there as well, and she was doing well. We were doing great. Yeah. I mean, we're disciplined. So we took care of our priorities, and we knew we just had to take care of our family. And
Right.
if, you know, for us, it's just like a no-brainer. It's like, you don't even think of these things. If you're a parent, you know what to do.
You just have to have that secure job with the medical benefits.
Exactly.
And,
you know,
I get it.
But at the same time, it's like, man, I just had like other things on my mind, and I wanted to do more in life. So I was like, man, I've just went out on a limb. We had the discussion. I quit. She held it down for a long time.
Wow.
And sacrificed a lot. And I went all the way in and just I figured this thing out. And although there was a lot of competition with other recording studios, I felt like I had what it took to create a business that would, you know, bring in what we needed in order to survive.
Right, like long term. Exactly. Right.
And I was just, and like,
so how old were you, if you don't mind me asking, when you started it?
Yeah, I was in my early, so in 2013, I was 10 years ago, I was 34.
Wow, so that's still fairly young, like trying to branch off something secure.
Exactly, but I knew I had this feeling like this was going to work. I just I knew it was going to work. I knew it was going to work, and got into the recording thing. I was recording a bunch of artists, and that was like coming in consistently. And then I got into videography. I started, shooting.
So you even did videography?
Yeah, I was a videographer. So I did a bunch of things. It was like, and everything, like, we took our tax returns and we invested in the equipment. And I just I learned how to no YouTube, no nothing, just taught myself how to operate a camera.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I was just fascinated.
Right.
I just wanted to learn. And I got into that, audio, video, taught myself all these things, and got good at it.
Wow.
Stuck with it.
Okay.
Even when it was incredibly hard and difficult, like I just knew I could not tap out. It like crushed my soul just thinking about tapping out.
Did you feel like, because you were already in it, you're like, well, it's too late for me to just,
I really just wanted to make it work. Yeah. I just wanted to prove it to myself because no man in my family had really ever done anything besides like my grandfather, and I was like, like my father wasn't around for me. He wasn't there. I was an only child. My mom raised me by herself pretty much. So I was like, man, I just don't want to be a weak man. Right. I
love that. So you hustled.
Yeah, I got to make sure I take care of my family. I want to nurture and my gifts and abilities and apply them to something.
And I'm sure your kids see that in you. So like they're hardworking too, right? As
are
adults,
for sure. They're so hardworking, and I can attribute that to the upbringing and stuff like that. But I honestly believe it's a DNA thing. It's just in them. It may not even come from my wife and I. It's just something that they have. But I think we have a hand in it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, because I have family members who are doing well, and they were raised in the same family, and then some who were raised within this group that are just. They just don't know how to get their life straight. Yeah. So I think a lot of that holds true to a lot of families out here. So.
Nice. So you decided to start your own thing 10 years ago, and did it just start like the comfort of your own home, or did you actually have a studio outside of your home? So
it started at the house. It was called Vera House Studios. Okay. And then we were doing everything out of the house. And we were marketing on Craigslist. And my wife was like, and that was my wife's suggestion. She was like, why don't we market on Craigslist? And I was like, all right, cool. We started putting out ads, and those ads started to work, and it was absolutely free. So that's how I started to build clientele. And then I started, it was important for me, coming out of the casino industry, you learn a lot about customer service and creating an experience. And I took a lot away from working at the Venetian. I was like, man, the way that the casino used to smell, and it was always consistent, the way it made you feel, the level of customer service. So I brought that into my business at home, and it was it would always smell good, it would always look good, and I would always treat, no matter who came through the doors, everybody would be treated the same.
5-star service.
Exactly. So it was I brought that in with me, and I took that. So I gained invaluable knowledge just by working through that, having those systems in place and applying it to my business. So I took a lot from that.
Nice. And I'm sure you had a lot of repeat clients that came back over time.
Eventually. Yeah. Like it was always repeat. And then we moved out of the house eventually. I was like, you know what? We're growing out of this space. And that was another endeavor. Okay. So it was like, wow,
trying to find like a studio.
Trying to get a studio. Yeah. Like, you know what? Let's go ahead and, we got like, our first one was on Flamingo and Eastern, and we found this spot. It was adequate, and that's when we branched off and we got out of the house. And I changed the name from Vera House to Level 9 Studios, and I did that because I didn't want to attach I wanted to make it bigger than myself. I didn't want it to just be like Scott Vera Productions or something like that. I just felt like eventually this will be a company that will be known for something, and I just felt like it should be bigger than me. Right. And that was the vision. So changed the name and continued doing what we were doing. We were we kept investing in the company, and I just got obsessed with business at that point. So doing all the back end work, all the production, but just getting, really, really interested on the business side of things.
Because it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You can like be a specialist in your craft, but having to branch off and start your business and, find the space and run the business, right? That's why some people who are talented and are the creatives, they hire other people to run their business because it's a lot of work. The book work on top of that. I remember running my parents' business, and I'm like, why do we have to do accounting and bookkeeping? But you learn a lot. I actually went to school for business, so like kudos to you for somebody not having that background and going to school for it. My brother and I were kind of forced to go to school for business because we were supposed to take over the family business, which I branched off and did my own thing. It's fine, hurt my parents' feelings, but they're okay with it. My brother stuck with it. You just kind of found your path, and here you are now, business owner. 10 years later, you've grown over the years. To a full-blown studio with like how many rooms do you have in your studio now? So
it's 2 studios, and we have a control room. So each room is like customizable too. So and they're all like. As you see, we design them, according to the needs of our clients. So nothing is like a set it and forget it. We have our 2 rooms, control room, nice little entryway,
little lobby. I like that. It's welcoming.
Thank you.
And I like that you cater to your clients' needs. It's not like a cookie cutter type studio. Like I've toured a couple of other podcast studios, and I'm like, okay. It's just like a one size fits all. They can't do, or they can't adjust it to my needs, right? You do, which is what I like. And so you also offer like the audio edits, you do video, you do production, like you do it all. So what made you think about opening up this full-blown studio and just branching off into like podcasting, recording, as opposed to just like music production?
So what happened was I just got burnt out with the clientele that I was getting. It was a lot of negative stuff, and it just didn't resonate with me and who I was. Yeah, it's like, I feel like culturally with like in hip hop and like what I was used to, it was the type of music. It just wasn't good. I could see that. It was unhealthy, talking about a lot of the things that I just wasn't interested in. And I was shooting videos for hip hop artists, and I just wasn't interested. And I was like, I'm not feeling this anymore. And just something came over me one day, and I just, podcasting was like kind of like coming up, like, like it just started to, circulate in podcasts. It wasn't really popular at the time, so I saw something in podcasting that made me think like, man, what if I just just focus on podcasting?
It's definitely, and I was like, grown over the years, right?
Yeah. I was like, how hard could this be? I was like, it's just, it's a set.
Right.
And it's not like mixing and mastering a full song. It's just 2 vocal tracks. It has to be easy.
It's easy for you because you have, but like for somebody, I can tell you my story getting into this. I had like a 2-year, dream of getting this thing started before COVID. So 2 years before 2020, right? And I'm like, yeah, I have an idea. I want to do podcasts. And everyone's like talking about all these up and coming podcasters and stuff. And I just thought, I don't think I'll ever get there, but it's a thought. And then COVID happened. And so then I started seeing everybody in my industry, coming from special events and hospitality, everyone was furloughed or let go, right? Nobody had their jobs to go to. So they were trying to do random things. People were starting cooking channels on YouTube, or chefs that I knew were starting a hot sauce line, all this stuff. And I'm like, that actually might be cool to interview some of these people who branched off and did their own things, especially during COVID, seeing how people pivoted. Now, I can tell you the amount of research that I did for this, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I did a lot of YouTube, so thank goodness for YouTube. Researched on internet, the internet is amazing. You research a lot. And I just thought, all right, since everything's shut down, I'll just do this virtually. It'll be fine. What I realized after was, okay, not everybody has great Wi-Fi. So there's a lot of glitches. Lucky for me, I have a daughter who's in video production at school. And so she's, learning how to edit and all this. So I had her do it for free. It's a lot. And so, again, why I'm here at your lovely studio, because I did have friends that were like, okay, the pandemic's over. You need to get a studio space. Like, why don't you bring people to your house? And I was like, okay, first off, I really don't trust a lot of people to come into my home. And then I have 3 kids, just like you, who are still in high school or early years in college. They're loud. They have friends that come over. I would be recording. I would text the kids if they were out of the house. I'm like, hey, FYI, I'm recording an episode. So if you're walking through the door, be quiet, keep it down. They'd come in, like the doorbell's ringing, Amazon packages are coming. I'm like, this is not working. So then I was on my search for a studio. Never saw yours pop up when I was Googling stuff, or maybe I did, but I thought you were too high end. I didn't even, take a look at your rates and stuff. So I'm like, no, it's really not in my, it's not for me. Right. So, I looked at a couple of other studios and I was like, I don't know. I'm going to keep searching. Finally, after a year, I found your studio and I'm like, okay, let me just see what this guy has to offer. And it's been great since then. So thank you, because I feel like everyone who wants to get into podcasting, it's great, right? Everyone has a different niche to touch on. But for me, it's like you should focus on the topics as a podcaster and your guests, and not focusing on having to buy all the equipment and have a dedicated studio and this amazing studio that you put together, because that's really not, well, it is going to make your podcast great, of course, but because the level of, recording is so much better, but it doesn't necessarily drive the audience to your podcast, because they want to hear your topics, right? Correct. So for me, I'm just going to leave it to the experts for the audio and stuff, so, which is you, because I can only imagine the amount of equipment you have here just to do what you do for me, and the cost involved.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, good for you, because I'm sure you're getting a lot of amateur podcasters like myself coming in and just asking all questions like, how do I get started and whatnot. So do you offer them like services, like help them get their podcasts together? Do you get any brand new podcasters who come in and ask all those questions?
Yeah, we do everything from like the ground up, like everything, because, coming from music, like I did a lot of, so knowing about, you have to know about branding. You have to know about marketing. Right. These are all the things that you're going to find in podcasts. So I come with that knowledge. So when people come in, I mean, of course, I'm here to assist and direct and give everything that I possibly can and get people started on the right foot when it comes to their podcast. So you can come in if you need help or direction with, branding, knowing how to set up everything from your social media to, and the most important part is your audio and your video. And, I think that by far is like top of the list when it comes to creating a podcast. So, nailing that for the client, giving them the direction that they need, and being consistent with that help. So every time that they're in here, they feel like they're evolving and that they're growing, and that they have a strong supporter in this venture that they're on, so that they can continue to grow. So I mean, because it's not going to happen overnight. Like if you want success and you're looking for that, you really got to stick with this. It's it's those who are consistent enough to continue to go. Right. Like you can't give up. You have to stick with it. But we want to make sure here that we're producing quality content for everybody, because it's about the quality of the content. if the visuals aren't good or if the audio isn't great, like you got to keep people engaged and it has to be quality. I mean, you got 5 and 3-year-olds that understand quality content because that's what keeps them engaged. Us as adults, like we know when we're listening to something bad, or if there's something, you know, visually that isn't pleasing, we'll change it because it doesn't sound good. It doesn't look good. The topics might be great, but you know, like it's energy. We're creating something that people are going to connect with. So we're trying to cover, we cover all bases here, and we make sure that, you know, we take care of our clients.
No, and I love that. I mean, I know, so the last episode I recorded, I'm sorry, I didn't download it in time, but I can definitely tell the difference in the audio, like huge difference, right? Yeah. And that was the one thing that a lot of my kids mainly were like, you need to like have a legit studio, like do the audio. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll see if I can afford it. And the hardest thing for me too was it was hard to get these guests to get a schedule set where they can commit to coming in the studio. Sometimes it's easier for them to just log into a virtual call and record it that way. But again, like I said, the downside to that is like everyone's, the lighting could be off, right? Some people could look really dark in the video, or their Wi-Fi is off. It's glitching all the time. So I'm having to edit a lot of things, and I'm like, this is insane. So it's much better in person. My problem now is trying to get everybody on a schedule to like commit, like, hey, let's meet in person, right? Because everyone's schedule's different, especially business owners and whatnot. For you, thank you for being here early on a Sunday. So let's go into your day-to-day. I love the experience that you give. And the reason I bring that up is when I tell you, I was looking around at other studios. I went and did a recording. It was on a weekend. Just got a code to get in. I'm not going to name where this place was, but I got a code to come in. And the podcast room that I actually toured was not where they put me. So it didn't have any of the sound stuff, you know, and I show up and everything that was set, like the mics were on, there's nothing set. So I had to figure out how to connect everything, which I don't know any of that stuff. I'm not an audio visual person. And I was like, okay, I had nobody to call for support. Mm-hmm. So that was a downer for me. And I'm like, you know what? It's fine. We're already here. Went ahead and recorded it. There was a lot of echoing. But, you know, my guess was she was great about it. She's like, it's fine. Let's just, you know, have the mics here for like aesthetics. But it wasn't connected to anything.
Wow.
So, so I love that you're here on a weekend. And if we have issues, you know, you're able to help out. Do you ever take a break from your day-to-day? Because you're open every day, right?
I'm open every day.
Okay.
I have to schedule my days off, of course. Everything is automated online scheduling. So
I saw that.
So people book online. I rarely get time off.
So when do you give yourself like a day off if people are, because you have your calendar, your booking system online?
I do.
Do you ever just pick a day and block it out so that,
I do.
Okay. Because
I have to.
I was looking at that. I'm like, he's got every day on a calendar. Like, does he ever give himself a break?
I know.
Yeah. I mean, my parents had a 7-day-a-week business.
Yes.
And we never shut down unless it was like Christmas or like a major holiday.
Right.
So I can only imagine how tired you can get when people are here every day and like till late at night because you have evening appointments as well.
Yeah. So, it's tough. Like I have to schedule my days off.
Right.
I have to schedule some days off like soon. I'm looking for those now. I just want to, you know, take a little break. But at the same time, it's like, you know, I'm fortunate, you know, and I don't take it for granted.
Right.
You know, I didn't work this hard just to get this far and just to be like, you know, I want to keep this thing moving.
Good.
So I feel good about it.
Okay.
I know that, you know, all the hard work is paid off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just grateful for this, you know, and I'm able to provide and take care of my family and do the things that I want to do and continue to grow. And although it is tiring at times, you know, I have to
Were you terrified at first? Like branching off, leaving the home? And getting a studio?
I was excited about it. I just had this drive. I was just like, I'm going to make this work.
Nice.
I have to make this work. I was just so driven. I felt like I compelled to just stick this thing out. It was just this overwhelming feeling, and I was really passionate about all aspects of this business. So it really kept me together even when things were like, I mean, like depressing, like, man.
Like slow, like no business.
It just like... Yeah, it could be that, or it could be just like, you know, like the uncertainty. It was like, oh man.
Right.
But just even then I was like, man, I got to figure this out. You know, I was
well,
just
it's doing
like,
well
no
for you. Yeah.
matter what,
There's no way for you to fail.
there was no way for me to just, but it was something that I was so passionate about that I just couldn't, you know? So it's like, you know, and that's what keeps me in, and I'm grateful for being booked every single day.
That's awesome.
I'm happy about it. You know, I can wake up every day and say, oh man, you know,
Right.
I'm not working a 9 to 5. You know, I'm running a business. I'm doing the things that I want to do.
It's funny, and everyone says sometimes when they get into their own business, right? You're no longer working 9 to 5. You're working 24/7.
You are.
Right. You basically are, but it's yours.
Right.
It's yours. So that's the upside to that is this
Correct.
is your baby. This is your business. No one's going to take it from you.
Right.
So how often do you see or do you get famous like celebrities or just people who come in here and rent out your space?
A lot. We get a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we've done everybody from. I mean, we've worked with so many people, and it's just not a name drop thing. It's just who
I
comes
saw
in here.
Elon's on your website.
Yeah, so
that's very cool.
Yeah, so Zuby ended up hiring us. He's another podcaster. He's a rapper and podcaster, and he talks about a variety of different subjects.
Okay.
And he found us, like everybody else does, on Google, contacted us, and he brought in Alex Hormozy, and he did an interview with Alex here. And he contacted me for the Elon Musk thing. He told me, hey, look, I got a podcast. Do you travel? I was like, yes, I do. And it happened to be with Elon Musk. And I was like, all right, great. Let's make it happen. We made it happen. Went out. It was myself, my wife, and my son. Went out there, set up shop. And we made that happen.
Right.
And yeah.
That's very cool. Like, see, I wouldn't even think that you'd be mobile, but that's awesome. So for the right price, you definitely can travel. Yeah.
So we go on site. We do everything. So it's everything from in studio to on site. We do live streaming. We do it all. We cover all bases podcasting. So you mentioned your son came with you. Do any of your children, do they ever want to get into this business or want to take over at some point? I would want that to. I want that to happen. I would like for them to eventually want to come on. I know they have their own interest right now, and this may not be the thing for them. Like I said, it's they were raised around me being in audio and doing all these things. So I'm not. Eventually, if it happens, that would be great. If it doesn't, that's cool too. Everybody's in a really, really good position in life. Good. I'm very grateful for the fact that they live righteously. Nobody's in trouble. Everybody's doing what they want to do, and they're living, they're thriving. And that's all I could ask for as a parent.
Good.
Yeah.
And so, I know it's hard. It's hard as a parent to know that your child doesn't really want to take over something that you built, right? I got a lot of pushback from my parents when I eventually stepped away from our family business. My brother kind of stayed on, but it wasn't my passion. Like, he definitely mastered the craft and loved it, and I was just like, it's not what I want to do. I don't want to do hair forever. Right. But it was in my family's gene. I mean, my mom's side, everybody did hair. Her sisters, my cousins, so we were all barbers or cosmetologists. And it was funny because in high school, my friends would ask, they're like, so are you going to cut hair when you get older too? And I was like, oh my gosh, like, really? Is that what I'm known for? Like, no, I'm not going to cut hair. So I eventually left and branched off and did my own thing. But it was nice to have that cushion of the family business because it was very successful. And it was just nice to know that if I needed a day off, I could just call and be like, Dad, I don't want to go in today. I'm not having a good day.
That's so good.
But he definitely made me work. Don't get me wrong. Like a lot of our stylists were like, man, your parents really make you and your brother work. And I'm like, just because they're the owners does not mean that we get it easy. Like we have to hustle just as hard as you guys do. And, we're stuck to the schedule too. But yeah, it is nice to have that, flexibility sometimes.
Absolutely.
If you just need a day off, you're like, I'm tired, I'm burned out. Okay. Because we worked 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can imagine how tired you get. And I'm sure, your wife probably wants you to take some days off too.
Oh, so for sure. Yeah. Like it's important.
Yeah.
You need that. You need the downtime. You need to connect with your family.
Absolutely.
And just stay there and just have family time. That's when I'm done here. That's where I go. I'm home.
Go home.
I just go home.
Does she ever come in here and help you with the business too?
Oh yeah, she's a major part of this. Like
nice.
she's a realtor now. She's been doing real estate for a while now, and she's very successful in that. And she's a major part of what happens here in the studio.
Right.
Like, a lot of the things that we have are because of what, her vision too.
Right.
So, she plays a major role. She's had a massive impact on this business, and it definitely wouldn't be what it is today without having her on my side.
So do you have, I'm sure she has a lot to do with this, but is there like or actually what inspires you, or who inspires you?
I'm just inspired just being alive.
Yeah.
I feel fortunate just to be healthy and to be sane, mentally healthy and physically healthy.
Right.
I mean, I really don't care about anything else. I'm not into material things. I don't work for the material things.
Right.
I don't work for to gain recognition for clout. Like, even though I have a lot of people that I've worked with in here,
Right.
and this business is pretty big right now. So I have a lot to look at and be like, wow, this is amazing, but I just don't wear it on my sleeve. I could really care less about that type of reputation and having an ego or any of those things. I just want to be
a simple guy.
I just want to be a regular guy and do regular things, and do the things that I love to do. I mean, I'm passionate about this, but I'm inspired just by waking up every morning. I wake up every single day and I'm like, thank you, God. I'm just like, I get to do this again.
Right.
Like, everybody in my house is healthy. I go through these things like I'm getting ready. I'm out of bed, and these are the thoughts that I have coming out, and these are the things that I tell myself every single day. So it's like I'm just inspired by being alive. I mean, none of us are going to be here,
right? We're not here forever. We're
not here forever. So why not just appreciate life in it of itself and have a good time on this adventure and
I agree.
Have fun and not be like an adult. You know what I mean?
I know, because we all have so many responsibilities.
It's like we're getting older and stuff like that, but at the same time, it's like, man, just have fun.
Yeah.
I just
enjoy life.
I want to have fun. Like adults make things way too hard.
Yeah. We do. We're known to complicate things. I know a lot of kids they keep it simple. I think there was something I remember reading years ago where it said like there was a puzzle that was put in front of these elementary school students and adults, right? And the adults made it so much more complicated. And these young kids figured it out much faster than the adults did because they think of things very simply. Like they don't complicate the process. So you're absolutely right about that. And when you talk about enjoying life, absolutely being grateful for being healthy. I know I used to wake up years ago being like, oh my gosh, I have to go to work today. But when you change that mindset and go, oh, I get to go to work today, it's more of a positive outlook, right? I do know when my mom was like, she had terminal cancer. The one thing she did tell me, because she loved, by the time my parents were making it big, with their business, they bought all the nice things, right? You talk about being very simple and not caring about all that fancy stuff. She loved her designer bags. She loved to travel. So my parents traveled all the time. She got every new designer bag. She had this huge collection of ceramic, figurines and whatnot. And when she was towards the end of her, her illness, and she pulled me aside and said, so I just want you to know that, I want you to enjoy life. And there's nothing out there that you can buy that will, make you happy and like make you healthy. She's like, just remember that your health is more important. It doesn't matter if you have all these fancy things because it's not going to matter when you end up dying.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh my gosh, like, she's so right. But like some people live off of that. They want to be successful so they can buy the big houses, the fancy cars and all that stuff, but you can't take it with you to your grave.
Right.
So it's like, enjoy the experiences for sure. Not just the materialistic things. I do know she enjoyed traveling. So like, do you and your wife travel quite a bit with the family?
We try.
Okay.
It's not as often as we would like.
With your schedule here
with
too.
the schedule and stuff like that. But we're setting, like, we have our eyes set on certain things that we want to achieve within like the next 4 to 5 years, for ourselves, and eventually being acquired, and so we can have some quality time, and because we've been working hard for so long.
And such a young age too. You guys have been hustling forever, which is awesome though.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun because I like being productive.
I like the hustle.
I like results and I like progress. I'm very much addicted to that.
Nice.
I love seeing the results of something. Like if you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
And if you start something from scratch and you see this thing grow and it's like, it's mind blowing.
Right.
It's like, you never thought like you could, be in a certain position
Right.
that you're in after working for so hard, for so long,
Yep.
so hard. And it's like, it's just incredible. It's like mind blowing, like what you can do. Just like, even if you're, even the littlest amount of effort, and if you see a little bit of a result, man, that's really it fuels me. Like
Right.
the results really fuel me. Like it really pushes me. It keeps me driven. I'm results based.
So when you talk about the tough times and you talk about pushing through, like were there times in your business early on where you felt like giving up, but you knew you couldn't?
Yeah. There were, not in this, but in when I pivoted from working in the music industry.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah. I was like, man,
because that was all you knew, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was. That's all I did
Right.
for
Right.
so long. And I was like, man, it was like heartbreaking. I was like, damn, but I'm not feeling this. And, so I stuck with that, even though it was painful and I wanted to tap out. I just feel so blessed and that I
Right.
was able to pivot and just get out of that.
I think you pivoted at the right time too.
I did.
Yeah.
It was timing. It was a timing thing because nobody else was promoting
Right.
these things, or everybody had
Right.
video production,
Right.
but they didn't have podcasting.
Right.
Nobody was doing
And
podcasting.
so when you came out with that and you decided to pivot into that side, the podcasting side, did you get a lot of like backlash? Did people look at you like, why are you doing that?
Nope, nobody said anything because
Okay.
nobody really knew what it was at the
Right.
time.
It was so
it was
new.
still kind of new,
Yeah.
and like people knew what it was, but
Right.
man, it's like nobody was
Yeah.
doing it. So nobody like, and not to mention, it's like I don't have like a
Yeah.
big circle of people. It's just my wife and I. Like this is
Right.
all we have. It's
Yeah.
just us. So I got that support already. So I didn't have any backlash.
Right.
I didn't have
But it's
anybody
awesome
else.
that you've grown to this level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How big your business is now and how much exposure you've gotten.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't even have money towards marketing.
Right.
I don't market.
It's just like word of mouth.
I spent a lot of time on my website,
Okay.
and I developed that myself. I designed my own website.
Wow. So you're also a web designer.
So I did my own. I do as I mentioned.
Right.
It's marketing. It's
Yeah.
like as an artist, like what you have to do. So I
Right.
think I'm customer centric. I know I'm a customer myself.
Right.
I know what I want.
You know what they're looking for on
and
your website.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
Yeah.
how can I simplify this,
Right.
make it look good, not have a bunch of stuff on it, just get to the
Right.
point on the website. And that's exactly what I did. Found
Yeah.
something nice that I was able to work with and modify and customize that thing
Right.
and make sure that it had everything.
Right.
So there was no questions asked. Only if you were to just kind of like clarify on certain things. Yeah. Call me up, clarify, but it's technically all there. It's very, very simple. So I did that too. And yeah, I attribute a lot of that success to having the right branding
Right.
online and being consistent with that and making sure that I delivered even from the phone calls to
Right.
the emails. Like everything has to be consistent.
Yeah.
Like how I respond, how fast my response time is.
You're very responsive, by the way.
My communication is
Yeah.
key. Like I used to,
It's
carry
that
my
5-star experience you're giving.
it's
Yeah.
like, my wife was like, why you always got your phone on you?
Right.
I'm like, I got to keep my phone on me.
I get that a lot from my husband too, but it's like, you're right, because you never know when you're going to miss an email. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think I emailed you on a Sunday, and I thought, then honestly, because I was on your site and I'm like, I like it. It was simple. It was very simple. So thank you for making it simple for people like myself.
Sure.
But I was like, I'm going to send an email and I'll probably get a response on Monday because it's a weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you responded like within the hour, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's working on a Sunday? Okay.
Yeah.
So I was very impressed. So yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it pays off. Tell your wife it pays off.
It does pay off. That was like in the early days,
Yeah,
like in the early days is like, because I felt like the information is out there.
Right.
So I need to be ready.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make things happen over here.
Right.
So it's like I kept my phone on me, and it's just like communication is key. And I just all the time invested, like I need to be ready at all
Right.
times because the time has already been taken
Right.
up to get to this point. So I'm like, I need to be ready.
Yeah.
I need to answer the calls, emails, all that stuff. So it's like
Do you guys have any plans to kind of expand from what you are doing now? Because it seems like you're doing it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to expand eventually. We're definitely, there's a lot of things in the works right now that we're doing. We're going to take everything on from the branding, all the production from the back end to the front end of production. Like, we already do that. Right. All the production stuff, we already have that handled. And then, we'll eventually get into marketing and then distribution. So,
Very cool.
We're working on all of these things right now so that literally everything is going to be done right here.
It's like a one-stop shop for everybody.
It basically is right now, but we want to cover every single aspect. Wow. And so eventually that's coming. Mm-hmm. We're working on those things, and also have some other ideas that we're going to be exploring.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about it yet because those are things that are kind of like...
Right. But nobody's
doing it right now.
Yeah, no one's doing it right. But you have a plan. So when you talk about, I'm thinking about when you say 4 or 5 years down the line, I like that you bring that up, because a lot of people think their goal to get to their end goal, it's like an overnight success and they're going to get it done in a year. And then they lose interest when after 6 months, nothing's happening, right? But you have this long-term goal, which I love that, because a lot of people don't realize, most people in business or who have a passion, they're thinking long term. They're not thinking like just to ramp up in 6 months and be this big, have this big success, right? And then continue from there. There's a lot involved. Like you have to do a lot of planning to get to where you want to be.
There's a lot of work. Yeah, there's a lot of work, but you have to enjoy the work too. So, I mean, and you just got to stick it out. Yeah. A lot of people want to tap out way too early.
Right.
I think a lot of the your success is on the other end of that notion of giving up. Like you really got to stick it out. Like
Stay consistent.
If you want to do this, if there's something that you want to do, just stick it out. 9 times out of 10, you're gonna outrun everybody else. It's like if you just give up and you're not even crossing the finish line, and there's no finish line in this thing. It's never ending. Like so the possibilities are endless, right? Like so if you can think and kind of like shift your mindset, and people talk about mindset all the time, but it's really really crucial and important, because
I agree.
If you think it's not easy, number one, and there's so many different things that may be working against you, and you may be working against yourself too. Right. So, but if you are able to get in the mindset, and it's so cliche now, and like everybody talks about this. It's like everybody talks, and it's like, oh my God, the mindset. But it's the truth. Like if you have the right mindset and you can just stick it out, I promise you, like. Or you're just not meant to do the thing that you're pushing for too. Right. Like, and you need to accept that as well, and then go for something else, or just accept because not everybody's entrepreneurial either. Right. They think it's a glamorous thing. It's really not. It's not like it's
they
fun.
Don't know what's involved on the back end.
Back end stuff is this is all prepped for you beforehand, but this takes time to organize and to situate. So it's like a lot of people think like, it's easy. I think that if people were to shift their mindset and stick with it, and, stick with the things that they want to do, as cliche as it sounds, this is just entrepreneurial talk. Right. It is what it is. If you're passionate about it, your passion will keep you, with it. If not, then that you got to move on.
Right. It's almost like you on the music side, right? The music production side, you were kind of losing that passion for it, and you got into this, and so this is more like what you want to do, right?
Right. Yeah. I found something that was clean, that was, had like all of the I get what's the word I'm looking for? Just like something that resonated with me more as a person, right? Like where it just wasn't conflicting with my interest.
Got it.
So now
that's hard. Yeah, that is hard to work in a like a niche where it's this, you don't have it in you. It's just not what you like, right? But you're doing it because it's the job, it's your business, but you weren't passionate about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So at least I can say like. I found something that I was able to pivot towards that, was beneficial. And, I didn't even know where this was going to end up. I thought it was going to be big. And that's why like your belief system too is like so important. Right. Like if you're not there to believe in this entire process, like all the way through, like if you're not believing enough to even push yourself, like,
Right.
There's so many different parts of it, like we can go deep into all of it, but that's a big part too. Like I just believed that it was going to work.
I think a lot of people actually set themselves back on their own because they just don't believe in themselves. You're right. So if there's anybody out there that you can speak to, like when it comes to being an entrepreneur, what kind of advice do you have for these people who want to start something, maybe not just a podcast studio, something else in business? I mean, I hear it all the time. People are like, if you're not passionate about it, it's not going to work. But like some people do well in something that they're not passionate about. But what advice do you have for anybody that's just looking to start their own business or just get into business?
I'd just say, find something that you really like, right? Mm-hmm. And if that's what you want to do, get started right away, and do the small things first. The small things lead to big things,
right?
Take small steps. I don't recommend, throwing yourself into debt right off the bat. I think like you have to have a full understanding of like what it is that you're doing. Seek mentorship if you don't have that. Read, go on YouTube, try to see what you can do in the field that you're interested in, and like learn about that first.
Research.
Yeah. You want to do your research. I say just get started right away because you're going to end up pivoting one way or another.
Right.
And you're going to grow and evolve into something else. You're going to find another passion within that business that you're pursuing and that you're active in, and you're going to grow as an individual too. So there's massive opportunity in becoming an entrepreneur because it's always going to lead to something else, in my opinion. I didn't think I was going to be able to do the things that I'm doing now. Okay, so I didn't hire a web designer. I designed that myself. You did it yourself. Yeah. I didn't, nobody was doing podcasting, so I didn't have anybody to lean on there, but I had the insight and foresight to see like, there's something here and I'm going to pursue this. I think like if, you have a passion for something or if you're good at something, like go for it first, see where it leads you, right? Just take your shot. And then if it's for you, you'll stay. If not, you'll pivot.
You'll learn.
You'll learn. Yeah. There's always something to learn. And of course, it's just like, if that's just for anybody just trying to get into entrepreneurship, just, figure out who you are first, what you're going to do, lean into the things that you're passionate about and that you're really, really good at. So if you have any type of skill or knowledge about anything, you can turn that thing into a business for sure. I did it and I didn't have any education on this. I didn't go to college. No guidance, no education. Wow. I didn't do any of these things. So I just kind of like threw myself into my passion. It turned into Level 9 and I just believed in myself.
I think you have the drive. There's a lot of people that just don't have it, and they have all these bright ideas, but they don't want to push through and actually do it, right?
Yeah, I like working. Yeah, I like the work too. I do. You have to enjoy the process. Like as cliche as that sounds too.
It's true though.
It's true. You have to enjoy the process. Like, man, I'm going to figure this out.
Right.
Like it's just like a puzzle, right? Or anything. Anything complicated. I mean, is it really complicated or am I overcomplicating things myself?
That's true.
I don't know. I think it might be me. So I might as well get focused on this thing, learn some stuff. And I like that type of stuff too. Like,
no, I love it. I like the learning process too. Like just for anything, learn. I mean, hearing your story, you basically learned every aspect of production.
I did.
And started off, just in music, but like, look where you're at now.
Right.
And the reason why I wanted to bring you on this podcast is because I get a lot of my industry people, they asked during COVID, even after, they're like, so how did you get into it all? And I'm like, honestly, I just researched a lot and it's not the greatest, it was like virtual, nothing fancy. And everyone's like, oh, you need to have better audio, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, look, I just need to get started. I didn't need to be perfect.
That's it.
You don't have to be perfect to start.
That's it.
But I started and here I am almost 3 years later. However, are there improvements that need to be, made along the way? Absolutely. I found a little studio to make my home, found, somebody to edit my audio and make it so much better. So it's awesome as my, as the podcast has evolved. However, a lot of people they're scared to take that first step.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. And hey, rightfully so. It is a scary thing. But at the same time, like, there's so much more on the other side of your fear. Like, that's regret. Where the thing, regret is one. But man, once you get that taste, once you get the results, once you start seeing results, it's just, that's what drives me. I love seeing results. I love seeing myself come out out the other side, victorious.
Right.
There's no other feeling like that. You know what I mean? And you don't get that all the time. But when you're an entrepreneur, you get that often, because you have setbacks.
Yeah.
Things don't happen. You're going to have setbacks.
Yep.
But when you overcome challenges, it's so rewarding.
Yeah.
And
it's
I
like
love
that
that.
small little step ahead is so huge for you because you've had so many steps back, right?
Yeah.
No, I totally get that. I think I used to stay up really late at night trying to figure out this whole podcasting thing because no podcast studio was around or I didn't notice anything was open right at the time we're shut down. And I'm telling you, a lot of people ask me, like, how did you get into this? I'm like, a lot of research. And honestly, I'm like, if you don't have it in you, because I have a platform where I upload my podcast. And yes, I have a daughter who helps me merge all the edits, right? Now I have you to do the main audio edit, which is awesome. Then finding little clips to post on social media. I'm like, that's all like the back end side. And you guys see the glorious part of it. Like, oh my gosh, how cool. You got this person on your podcast. And I love the story. Podcasting has definitely evolved as well because it used to be just all audio. And now people have video. Like I only created a YouTube channel for this because there are a lot of people who wanted to see the visual. They don't want to just listen to the audio. It's the only reason why I did it. But since then, I'm like, it seems like every other podcast now has a video portion. It's not just audio anymore.
Right. And it's important. I think the visual aspect of it too is just like so people can connect with, the viewers on a different level. I mean, people want to be entertained. Like we're in this this new day and age where content is like everywhere and content is like everything. So video is essential if you're going to have a podcast.
Are you seeing a lot more podcasters doing adding the video portion as opposed to just the audio?
Everybody's doing video. I don't have one person in here that doesn't do video.
Well, I thought that was odd because a lot of my guests in the beginning were like, is this, do I have to look good for this? I'm like, well, it's going to be on my YouTube channel. And they're like, oh, I thought it was a podcast. I'm like, look, a lot of podcasters I know, they have a video portion because there are some people, your audience that actually want to see, who your guest is, not just a picture on your social media or whatever. But so I love how, you touch on that because yes, podcasting has evolved to that where it was strictly audio at the very beginning and now everyone's doing video.
Yeah. It's important. And it's great for marketing too. Yeah. So like, I think podcasts, if you're a podcaster or, want to start a podcast, if you have any type of value to bring, or if, if you're going to educate somebody or if you have like something where you're going to be able to share your skills, you could, start your podcast and, connect with your viewers on a different level. And especially if the quality is good, like, so, you want to create quality content and that's the way to go. Success doesn't happen overnight for podcasters. Unfortunately, it is a very slow process no matter what. You gotta look at all of the big names who have podcasts and you gotta see where they've started.
And how they started,
and that will tell you a lot because there's people that are in the industry that are active that, have millions of subscribers, but it didn't necessarily start that way. They just did it because they love it. And a lot of people do this because they love it, not just because they want to. Some people want to monetize. Eventually that's where people want to get is to monetize.
I heard about some people monetizing. People were asking me about that, but sometimes I hate when the podcast gets cut off for the commercial and I'm like, I don't really want, to get into that yet. But eventually, yes, like that's the end goal, right? For me, but you make a good point. This is just a hobby. It was just for fun. It was just to keep me busy during COVID because nothing was happening at the time. So yeah, I mean, I still do it. People still enjoy it, but I don't really know where I'm going to take this afterwards, but I do love interviewing people. And the reason I did this was like just you and I talking offline. I like to hear the back end story of how people started in their business. So like yours is very interesting. And I would have never thought, I thought that this was just something you were in for a long time. This was your career, not knowing that you started off as getting into this as a hobby. Yeah. And then just made it your career. Yeah.
I mean, so getting into the music side and the production is I was passionate about that. And I was passionate about audio production. And, but when I saw podcasting come in, it was like, I see something here. Awesome. But it was just something I love to do as far as like, production is concerned. And I got very, very lucky on this. But at the same time, this was hard the hard work to build and develop.
sure.
It wasn't just like, this definitely wasn't
sure.
overnight. This is taken me many years to develop. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And I'm very fortunate to get to work with people like yourself and everybody else. And I don't put anybody on a pedestal. I keep everybody on the same.
Everyone's on equal playing.
I don't care who you are.
Yeah. No, I love that, because that was my biggest fear. I'm like, well, I'm going to go into these studios and like, I'm like a no-namer, right? And who's going to talk?
I'm a no-namer.
Right. But you know what? I mean, you know everything about the industry, which is awesome. And you bring all the big names here, which is great. So I think that was what attracted me to your studio, was a website. I'm like, okay, so this guy obviously knows what he's doing. I'm not going to show up on a weekend and not have any support and have to figure out how to attach these microphones to all my. I mean, that's really what I walked into, these co-working spaces who say, oh, we have podcasting studios, and I'm like, they're really not. Right on. You know what I mean? Yeah. They don't focus on that. It's an extra addition to their co-working space.
It's a studio, but not a service.
Correct. So yeah,
there's a big difference there.
I think you definitely give 5-star service that comes from the hospitality side that you've worked in. So thank you for that. Anybody out there who's interested in doing their podcast in Level 9 Studios is amazing. So you may have some people that may be reaching out, because like I said, a lot of my friends in the industry asked. And I was like, look, I did a lot of research. I would love to sit with you and tell you, but it really is a lot. It's not as easy as it looks, because you see it on my social media, right? Or you see it uploaded in Apple iTunes. There's a lot of great. You and I, after today, right? I'm going to have to go back home, wait for you to do the audio edits, and then look at this video, and then listen to the whole thing and cut all the good clips, right, to post. And so then finding out, what to post, like when to post it, it's just, there's a lot involved, and people don't realize that. It's not just the content, but it's how you promote it. Like you talk about marketing in your brand. So yeah, thanks for being here to make it much easier for me, because the virtual recordings with the bad Wi-Fi was just starting to get to me.
Yeah, it's hindering. Yeah. It'll set you back, and it can be discouraging too, and it can stop your momentum. So it's always great to delegate, technical things to people who understand
to the experts.
this. Yeah, and it can make your life a whole lot easier. You come in, you sit down. Do your show, and you're out, and then you
make it 100 times easier for me. So thank you.
My pleasure.
So much better.
My pleasure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this on a weekend, especially. I know that you could have probably slept in a little bit on Sunday, but I appreciate that. Yeah. And I'll definitely be seeing you again soon.
Absolutely.
So,
thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
All right. Bye, Scott.